flickering fluorescent light of the Atlanta Media Center, his hands trembling with a rage so quiet it felt like a physical weight in the room. He didn't look at the cameras. He didn't look at the FIFA officials standing in the back with their clipboards and their tailored suits. He simply stared at the microphone, as if it were the only honest object left in a stadium that had just witnessed the surgical dismantling of a nation's dream. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium was still vibrating outside, the echoes of the Argentine celebrations bleeding through the concrete walls. But inside this room, the air was cold. Hassan finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot, and spoke a truth that the governing body had spent billions of dollars trying to sanitize. He told the world that he would say what was on his mind regardless of the consequence. He called it a rigged match. He asked a question that should haunt every fan who still believes in the sanctity of the whistle. If the winner is already decided, why call the rest of us to participate? This was not the standard post-match frustration of a losing coach. This was a whistleblower's manifesto delivered in real time. The tragedy in Atlanta was not just about a scoreline. It was about the moment football stopped being a sport and became a scripted entertainment product. Egypt, a team that had not reached a World Cup quarterfinal since 1934, was outplaying the defending world champions. They weren't just surviving, they were dominating. The Pharaohs had taken a shocking early lead, a header that silenced the blue and white sea of fans. For 58 minutes, the world was watching the impossible become inevitable. When Mustafa Zico buried a clinical strike into the net to make it 2-0, the narrative of the 2026 World Cup was being rewritten by the underdogs. The Egyptian bench cleared. The stadium exploded. In that fleeting moment, the game was pure. Then, the video booth reached out and rewrote reality. This was the precise moment the architecture of the tournament revealed itself. The intervention was devastatingly systematic. Egypt's 2-goal cushion was erased because of a microscopic contact 100 yards away, on the opposite end of the pitch, at the very beginning of the sequence. The officials claimed Marouanatia had fouled Leandro Martinez, deep in Egyptian territory. We have to look at the law to understand the scale of this deception. Under IFAB Law 12, a challenge is only a foul if it is careless, reckless, or uses excessive force. This was a negligible clip of the boots. It was a phantom. Martinez, a veteran of high-stakes deception, exploited the minor contact to buy a whistle that wasn't blown in real time. But because of a massive, deliberate loophole in VAR protocol, the officials were allowed to travel back in time. They scanned the entire attacking phase with no clock or yardage limits, hunting for a reason to invalidate the goal. They found a shadow and called it a crime. The timeline shift broke Egypt's destiny. The goal was stripped away, and the psychological trauma of that erasure was immediate. Even though Egypt showed incredible resilience, fighting back to score another valid goal in the 67th minute, the damage was already structural. If that original strike had stood, Egypt would have been coasting with a 3-goal lead against the world champions. Instead, they were trapped in a game where the rules only seemed to apply to them. Weaponizing a foul this soft to alter a knockout game is more than a mistake. It is a total disgrace to the spirit of the sport. It signals to every smaller nation that their excellence is a problem to be solved by the video booth. While the system was being used as a weapon to destroy the Egyptian dream, the same lens completely vanished when the champions needed policing. This is where the institutional bias becomes undeniable. The refereeing consistency evaporated the moment the underdog threatened the crown. There was a blatant jersey pull on Mohamed Salah inside the penalty area that was visible from the top tier of the stadium. French referee François Letexier, positioned perfectly, looked directly at the infraction and chose silence. No whistle, no VAR review, no second look. That ignored foul allowed Argentina to launch an immediate counter-offensive. The world champions stormed back with 3 goals in the final 23 minutes. It was capped by an Enzo Fernandez winner in the 2nd minute of stoppage time. It broke Egyptian hearts, but the heartbreak was engineered long before the final whistle. The engineering of this match points to a much larger, more cynical reality. When you look at the entire picture, it becomes obvious that the tournament organizers are desperate for a specific finale. They need the television ratings. They need the global corporate ad revenue. A France versus Argentina rematch is worth hundreds of millions more in broadcast rights and sponsorship activations than a quarterfinal featuring an African underdog. The establishment will tilt the pitch as much as necessary to ensure their multi-million-dollar entertainment script remains intact. This favoritism was present from the opening minutes. Egypt had rattled the champions early, taking that 1-0 lead. Almost immediately, the referee handed Argentina a lifeline on a silver platter. He He awarded them a highly questionable penalty for contact that was purely incidental. Let's look at the mechanics of that sequence. As the Argentine attacker moved goal side to reach a loose ball, the defender's leg came across. Under the strict letter of Law 12, a penalty is the call if a player trips an opponent, but this was two athletes running at high speed. The Argentine player went to ground the millisecond he felt contact. The official couldn't wait to point to the spot. It was an instinctive move to protect the favorite. Justice was temporarily served when Lionel Messi missed the penalty. The Egyptian goalkeeper made a fantastic save, a moment of pure sporting defiance. It was Messi's second historic penalty miss in a World Cup outside of shootouts. But the precedent was set. The referee had signaled that any contact against Argentina would be scrutinized, while any contact against Egypt would be ignored. This asymmetrical micro-policing is where the trap was truly set. The referee didn't just alter the scoreboard with the big calls. He systematically dismantled Egypt's defensive mechanics through a stream of minor tactical whistles. Every 50-50 challenge in the center circle was penalized if an Egyptian player showed physical intensity. If a defender stepped up to intercept a pass, the whistle blew. This relentless enforcement broke Egypt's transition game. It forced them to defend deep in their own territory. It allowed Argentina to sustain structural pressure without ever risking a turnover. This wasn't a series of isolated mistakes. It was exactly how the system was designed to work. The structural bias directly engineered the late-game breakdown. When the match crossed into the final 20 minutes, the psychological scars of the deleted goal paralyzed the Egyptian backline. In the 79th minute, when Cristian Romero found space to head home across, the defenders were terrified to contest the duel. They couldn't play tight. They couldn't use standard physical leverage. The officiating crew had already proven they were looking for any excuse to reward the heavyweights. They were playing against the world champions and the rules simultaneously. 4 minutes later, when Messi struck the equalizer off the crossbar, the defenders were practically playing with their hands pinned behind their backs. The tactical breakdown wasn't a failure of coaching. It was the logical consequence of a refereeing standard that stripped the underdogs of their right to play physical football. The raw human cost of this tilted framework was exposed the moment the final whistle blew. Mustafa Zico, the man who had done his job flawlessly by putting the ball in the back of the net twice, stood on the pitch in total despair. He refused to hide behind the safe, corporate platitudes that FIFA prefers. He told the global broadcast that the referee was unfair. He said the cup was being given to Argentina. This is the voice of an elite professional, realizing that his preparation, his sweat, and his nation's sacrifices mean nothing against a predetermined corporate agenda. When the integrity of the competition is dead, the game becomes a ghost of itself. Zico's words pulled back the curtain. The pitch had been structurally altered to ensure a blockbuster finale. Hassam Hassan backed his players by turning his post-match media appearance into a total indictment of the establishment. He made it clear that respect and fair play were absent from the pitch. Then he dropped the ultimate bombshell. He declared he was boycotting the rest of the competition. He will not watch a single remaining minute of the 2026 World Cup. Hassan exposed the tournament as a highly engineered television product rather than a sporting event. He chose to protect his team's dignity rather than validate a compromised system. This calculated execution cannot be allowed to stay hidden beneath polished mainstream media highlights. We have to look at the money. We have to look at the broadcast partners. We have to look at why certain teams are allowed to survive when they should have been eliminated. The 2026 World Cup is being played in the largest media market on Earth. The pressure to deliver a correct winner is immense. For FIFA, the dream scenario involves the biggest names on the biggest stage. Egypt, despite their tactical brilliance and their passionate following, does not fit the financial profile of a World Cup finalist in North America. The data suggests that viewership numbers spike when blue-chip nations are involved. Therefore, the officials become the curators of the bracket. They use VAR not as a tool for justice, but as a tool for narrative control. They go back 5 minutes to find a foul for one team, but refuse to check a clear penalty for another. This is the reality of the modern game. It is a game of selective memory and curated outcomes. When we talk about the tragedy of Argentina versus Egypt, we aren't just talking about a lost game. We are talking about the erosion of the meritocracy. If a team can play a perfect game and still lose because the system found a reason to delete their goals, then the training ground becomes irrelevant. The tactical board becomes a waste of ink. The players become actors in a play they didn't write. The Egyptian players knew it. You could see it in their eyes as they walked off the Atlanta turf. They weren't just tired, they were disillusioned. They had realized that the ladder they were trying to climb had been greased by the people at the right. The Egyptian players knew it. You could see it in their eyes as they walked off the Atlanta turf. They weren't just tired, they were disillusioned. They had realized that the ladder they were trying to climb had been greased by the people at the top. The response from the global football community has been a mixture of shock and quiet realization. Fans in Cairo, Alexandria, and across the Arab world feel the same sting of injustice. But this isn't just an Egyptian problem. It's a problem for every fan who wants to believe that the underdog has a chance. If the system is rigged for the giants, then the World Cup is no longer a World Cup. It is an invitational for the wealthy. The blatant nature of the Atlanta incident was so extreme that it may have finally broken the illusion. You cannot erase a 2-0 lead on a technicality and expect the world to keep quiet. You cannot ignore a clear foul on the world's most recognizable African player and expect no one to notice. The fallout from this match will continue long after the final is played. The boycott by Hassam Hassan is a significant moment in the history of international football. It is a rare instance of a high-level manager refusing to play the game of diplomacy. He is calling out the architects of the system. He is refusing to be a background character in FIFA's movie. This is the kind of resistance that the governing bodies fear the most. They can handle a losing coach's complaints, but they cannot handle a coach who refuses to participate in the spectacle. Hassan has effectively said that if the game is a lie, he will not be part of the telling. We must continue to track these tilted whistles. We must analyze every biased video review. We must look at the raw realities that the billionaire broadcasts refuse to analyze. The integrity of football depends on the fans demanding transparency. It depends on people refusing to accept the human error excuse when the errors only seem to benefit the same few teams. The story of Egypt in Atlanta is a warning. It is a preview of a future where the outcome of the World Cup is decided in a boardroom in Zurich or a broadcast center in New York, rather than on the grass. The image of Mustafa Zico standing alone on the pitch will remain the defining image of this tournament for many. He was a man who conquered the world champions twice in one afternoon, only to be told by a screen that he hadn't scored at all. He was a man who played by the rules and was defeated by the protocol. The stadium lights eventually dimmed in Atlanta, and the crowds went home, but the question Hassan asked remains unanswered. If the script is already written, what are we all doing here? The game we love is being traded for a product they can sell. The heart of the sport is being cut out to make room for a better camera angle. We are witnessing the end of the era of the underdog. The lights in the stadium have all gone out now. The blue and white flags have moved on to the next city, carrying their manufactured momentum with them. Egypt returns home with nothing but the knowledge that they were better than the champions, even if the history books will never reflect it. They carry the burden of the truth in a world that prefers a profitable lie. The final remains, a looming spectacle of corporate synergy and high-definition drama. But for those who saw what happened in Atlanta, the magic is gone. The pitch was tilted, the rules were weaponized, and the dream was deleted by a man in a booth. It is a quiet, specific sadness that hangs over the beautiful game. Is this the sport we want? The whistle has blown for the last time. The silence in the tunnel is deafening. Is there any justice left in football?